Hello and welcome to Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association's Reasonable Doubt. I am your host, Murray Newman. I have been abandoned by my normal co-host, Justin Harris, who's now even abandoning me on Zoom, which he said he would show up for. But luckily, I've replaced him with a great improvement, someone who has already agreed to be my fifth wife, Jackie Carpenter. Thank you for coming back on with us, Jackie.
So when are you going to get divorced? I need you to get divorced.
Just talk to her. I think she's packed up and ready to go. She's over it. She is. I breathe too loud. I mean, it is. There's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
She holds the record.
She's still a first timer though, so she's my third wife. But I'm her first husband, so she doesn't realize there's a lot better options out there yet. So,
Well,
also,
good for you.
I've never been married before, and I still realize there are a lot better options out there. But I'm waiting for you.
That may make you the smartest person at the table. So I don't know. Also joining us is my friend who I've known forever, Monica Gonzalez. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, it's an interesting week, and I really wanted to have this show tonight. You know, we're on a bi-weekly basis now on our show, but we wanted to keep tonight open to talk about because it's the aftermath of a huge election. We just had a really interesting election, obviously nationwide, and I don't want to be yet another canned, person talking about the national stuff. I think that's kind of played out, but I do want to talk about what the election meant to Harris County. And
the national stuff still affects us.
Well, yes, I did.
Right? Like we wouldn't have the down ballot stuff that we have,
and
for the national.
I definitely want to talk about it in context of how it affected Harris County, most definitely. But I want to say I was really surprised by the overall results for Harris County. I think I went into the national election thinking anything could happen, but in Harris County, I was really pretty confident there's going to be another Democratic sweep, and it wasn't. What was y'all's thoughts?
I also live in Fort Bend, so I thought Fort Bend was going to be a Democratic sweep, and it wasn't.
Okay, so I actually haven't even looked at Fort Bend. What happened in Fort Bend? Any major shockers?
Tamika Carter was a major shocker.
She lost? Oh, I did not know that. Wow. Okay.
But for the most part, I think everything down ballot was a shocker.
Yeah.
Like I really expected Harris County to still be blue.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not, the fact that Harris County is not, is amazing. Like it when you look at it, 15 million people stayed home. 15 million people, because of the national election, decided that they weren't going to come vote. And when those 15 million people decided to stay home, we end up with a very, very red Harris County, purplish Harris County, right? Because we did have some that, went in favor of the Democrats, and Sean Tier, went in favor of the Democrats. Thank God for that. But
Ed Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had some, but not as much as we thought was going to happen.
What do you think, Monica?
Well, it was a very, very tight election as far as Harris County went, and there's a little disparity in like where people jumped. And typically, there's a certain amount of voters that just come out, I'm going to vote Republican, there's certain that I'm going to vote Democrat. The fact that people were jumping around tells me they put a lot of thought into their decisions. I also think that I was surprised, but when I talked to other people, they were like, I'm not surprised. The Republicans came out fighting, and it doesn't matter what they said, whether it was true or not. People were buying into this Democratic, let's vote out all the soft on crime Democratic judges, when we know from being there that is not true.
The Democratic judges are not soft on crime at all.
No, in fact, there are some that are absolutely very, very tough.
Yes, in many ways, I think they're tougher than the Republicans.
But it didn't matter that it wasn't true. They put that message out. It was very effective as far as getting some voters out for the Republicans.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting because by the time we got to the general election, you only actually had one incumbent criminal district court judge who was on the ballot, and that was Robert Johnson. You had all the other incumbent, quote unquote, soft on crime judges either didn't draw an opponent in the first place, or had perhaps lost in the primary. So all this money that they spent, it certainly, they got their money's worth. The people that did this political action committee, I think there was more than one. And I've heard that it was something like Elon Musk financed type of thing that he had paid for. That basically said, we're going to attack the Democratic criminal judges, and hopefully there will be an effect on the civil, the Court of Appeals, and it worked. Both the 1st and 14th got swept. Some friends of ours lost their jobs as incumbents.
Some
Francis
very
Borloo
good
and
judges.
Portia Landau.
Very good
Yeah,
judges.
and so I mean, they got their money's worth out of that campaign. But I agree with you. I think it was hugely intellectually dishonest.
Oh, very much.
And I think there's a lot of different factors that kind of meld into this. I think that I think Kim Og did what I think is just can't be described as anything other than a betrayal of her own party by going after good judges.
Completely traitorous.
And I think that
She destroyed the district attorney's office and then turned around and blamed her own failures on everyone else.
Well, and the thing that I will never get about Kim doing that, and this, she didn't just do it this year, she started back in 2020, was there was so much that went wrong, and so much of this that they blamed the judges for was really something to blame the pandemic for. When you have no trials to move cases, people getting arrested, the cases aren't moving out, and the jail is getting full, and the jail's trying to avoid the pandemic. So, I mean, in 2020, by necessity, some people got out on bond that might not under normal times, and some bad things happened. But instead of blaming the pandemic, Kim and all the Republicans blamed those judges. And
They're an easy target because they
they
can't
can't.
come out and defend themselves. They
Right.
can't explain to them why somebody was let out, due to the Constitution.
Right.
There's a lot of finger pointing towards them, and it's just not fair.
No, I agree completely. But I thought, this would be the opportunity for Kim to just get up and say, this is the pandemic. But instead, she decided to feed on her own party. And it didn't work for her in 2020. It didn't work for her in 2022 when she tried to, lump Lena Hidalgo into this. But I have to admit that after 2022, I thought that Lena Hidalgo was I thought she was toast. I thought that they were making all these negative ads. They were blaming stuff on her, but then it was still a blue wave in 2022. And I assumed that, we win 2022, 2024 will be a walk in the park.
Yeah,
And
assume.
I was wrong, big time wrong.
Assume. I think some of the people that the party really leans on heavily just were not enthusiastic about the top of the ticket.
Yeah,
And when you have a lack of enthusiasm at the top of the ticket, people just don't come out.
right.
So it becomes a situation where they say, if I were to vote, I would vote Democratic. However, I don't feel like taking the time out of my schedule is necessarily worth it because I don't like either one of the candidates. And I think one of the things that we have to realize with regards to the top of the ticket is you have people that go out and campaign. Kamala was not one of those people. She absolutely never campaigned. And because she never campaigned, there's a lack of democracy in that for some.
Sure.
Right? And so you've got some people that are like, maybe I would have bought into her, maybe I would have been able to support her, but for the fact that, we never had the opportunity to decide amongst all the other candidates that she was the one that we wanted. And so, boom, here we are, 107 days out from the election, and she's having to win people over as opposed to having a year and a half or 2 years in order to run that same campaign. I think she ran an excellent campaign.
Yeah, for the limitations, the time limitations that she had. But the fact cannot be lost on me that Trump has run for president 3 times, and the 2 times he won, it was against a woman.
Yes.
And the one time he didn't, it was against a pretty old man.
Because America is racist and sexist.
So, but my question is,
But to put those
Right.
two together, like a black
right.
female,
But like I'm genuinely curious as to, was it more racism or was it more misogyny when it came to this one? I mean,
okay, so
We- we've had- we-
how badly did he beat Hillary versus how badly did he beat
Right.
Kamala?
fair point. You know, I mean,
But either which way, he
we've had a
still
black
beat.
president. We just haven't had a female, but we haven't had a female.
So it says America isn't ready.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I didn't think America was ready for a black president, yet Barack Obama made it. Right? Like that was a surprise.
Yeah.
And then I thought he was going to end up dead because I just thought. have you seen that movie with Chris Rock, the first black president?
If I did, it was a long time
Man,
ago.
it was funny because like he's always running from being killed, and then his double gets killed, right? And so I was so nervous the first term of Barack Obama that he was just going to be killed because I didn't think the CIA would care.
Yeah.
So then after they kept him alive and he made it into a second term, I was like, okay, we might be okay here.
Right.
So when Kamala comes along, I'm like, okay, this isn't really going to be a problem because we've accepted black. But we keep wanting to say that because of Barack Obama's election that we are post-racial. We are absolutely not post-racial. As a matter of fact, what Barack Obama's election actually proved is we're even more racist and we don't want to hide it anymore,
Right.
which is why Trump was so successful.
Yeah. It's definitely disheartening. But I think that, we talk about the time crunch that she was in this time, but remember she emerged in the 2020 election when they started campaigning. She was one of the first candidates right out of the bat was it in 2020 or was it 2016? Time loses, but she was kind of an odds-on favorite. I think it was 2020, and she folded pretty quickly in that race before it kind of fell to Biden. And I don't know if that was, what would have happened if she had had time and there had been a full Democratic primary instead of what happened with Joe Biden announcing he wasn't taking over.
So I guess I'm interested, Murray, because here we sit. We've got a Hispanic person, we've got a black person, we've got a white person.
One of the whitest people.
You could use a little tan.
What do you think this says about America?
It definitely, there's a great clip of what was that press show? It had where somebody says, "What do you think about living in the greatest country in the world?" And this journalist is like, "Oh, this isn't the greatest country in the world."
Yeah.
And I think it echoes. I think it definitely resonates. That this is, why do we call it the greatest country in the world? Because I think that this is a really ugly mirror we're looking in, and it's one of those things that like it, because I think it's so intrinsically that you feel negatively towards a person just because that's who they supported. They could be the quietest Trump voter that you know personally, but just knowing that they're a Trump voter still invokes feelings that might make you angry with them. And I think that part of that is because we think that what the message he says is so ugly that you can't imagine anybody in their right mind being on board with that.
I mean, he literally adopted the message through a comedian that Puerto Rico is trash.
Right.
Like it's just a floating island of garbage.
Right.
And when you look back at when he was president and there was tragedy through a hurricane, his thing was, oh, here's some paper towels, let me throw them out into the crowd.
Marie Antoinette let them eat
Yeah.
cake.
Yeah.
It's like this was
So disrespectful. So
insensitive.
disrespectful. Like, I mean, when we have tragedies on that level, what we normally do is say, you know what, we're sending help, and that help looks a whole lot different. It doesn't
We're
look like,
together on this. Like there's a
Yes.
bonding thing.
yes. I mean, during Harvey, we had who are those Cajun people that came down?
Oh, the Cajun Navy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they were like, we're coming. Like they were in boats,
Yeah.
right, on the highway, dragging boats, saying we are on our way. Basically, hold on, we're
Yeah.
coming, right? And that's what unity is supposed to be. We're supposed to be Americans. We're supposed to say, when times get tough, we're going to help each other out. And instead, people are on the internet going, oh, Texas is red, and there's a hurricane potentially coming your way, named Raphael. So since y'all are red, guess what we're not going to do? We're not going to help y'all if you need help. Like that, people are already saying that.
I think that if there are any steps towards making things better is what Kamala did yesterday, which was graciously concede and say, watch us, we're not going to storm the Capitol. We are going to call our opponents, we are going to call for unity even though we lost. And that was something that definitely didn't happen in 2020. And I think it's just going to be one of those situations that you've got to look to individuals to make their own differences, but it's going to take a long time to get us anywhere close to normal, I think.
That was a great concession speech. Like,
Yeah.
it was very unifying.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at the message that he sends, and it's something that people grab on to, make America great, as if we're not great.
Yeah.
He sent that message, we're not great, and the reason we're not great is because I'm not at the helm.
Right.
Well, it's Make America Great Again,
Right.
right? Which is the true MAGA slogan. And what he's really saying is go back to when America was great, which was when women were oppressed, right? When abortion was illegal, like pre-Roe v. Wade. Like, he wants to take us back in time, despite the fact that we supposedly have progressed.
Well, and I think it's liberals taking it way to the left, you know, that has made people on the right go, no, we need to pull back this
Right.
way. It's not great because they're bringing it. Transgender people should not have been the topic.
I
The
don't.
economy should have been the topic because that's what was so important in this election.
I'm probably going to shock you both. I don't identify as Republican or Democrat. I am independent, and I will vote either way. The problem here is if what you put is Trump at the top of the ticket, I'm not even looking in the direction of the Republicans. Like, there's no way. You can't possibly pull me over. It just isn't going to happen. But when people split, they tend to split being fiscally conservative and socially liberal. In other words, you can do whatever you want to do in your own private life, but fiscally, we need the money to be right. So the social liberalism is fine. Like, you know, live your life, do you, this is America, be free. I'm fine with all of that. But in that freedom, let me be free too. Let me do what I want to do.
And I kind of want to springboard on to what you just said, talking about that you felt that we're moving back towards something where you're not going to get pulled over, and that if you do, that you're going to be treated fairly. And I think that if we're going to shift from the national to Harris County and what we've got going on, I think that's what's scary to me personally the most. Is
But you're
that,
white. Is
no,
that
no,
really
I'm-
scary for you?
Well, no, I'm talking about.
You get pulled over by the police.
No,
Are you actually afraid?
I'm talking about the job more. I'm not talking about it in personal. You know, I mean, I'm a white guy. I am. You know, I'm probably going to be just fine under Trump. I acknowledge that. But what I'm talking about is for our clients and the having an area, having all these appellate judges that were elected that basically were like, we're here to make you safe, and no one's saying we're here to follow the law anymore. We want you to follow the law on the streets. Don't mind what we're doing in the courtrooms. And I'm worried about that attitude and what it means to our clients and what we do every day. You know, because I do feel that things since Harris County kind of turned blue in 2008, more or less up until Tuesday, that for a long time as defense attorneys we had a fair shot. Now this is around the time I became a defense attorney, so it was a good time for me to get fired from the DA's office and become a defense attorney. But I feel like for the past 16 years that there wasn't a home team, and that home team was the prosecution. I felt like we had more of a neutral playing field. Do you agree or disagree? And Justin has finally gotten up from his beauty nap and has decided to join us.
Actually, I thought he was on the toilet.
Oh,
Yes, I'm not on the toilet anymore. I'm here now. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I can't see you either Mark was trying to give me some signals. I don't know if my head's too high or too low.
Jackie, you're not supposed to make that gesture on television. So-
There y'all are. Hey y'all. Yeah, no, I'm enjoying the conversation. Keep going, especially what Jackie was saying.
Yeah, I feel like that was directed at me. But I mean,
Yeah,
let me ask you this: do you feel like we have had a pretty fair playing field as defense attorneys for the past 16 years, 15,
No.
16 years?
No,
Okay. Do you think it's going to get?
I hate to disagree with you.
Oh,
Murray.
no, you don't. First of all, but elaborate on that.
When these juries come in, these juries definitely come in wanting to like and love the state. The state wears that white hat that says, I'm the innocent ones, I'm the one of purity, I'm the one you should follow. And we as defense attorneys spend the entire trial trying to take that white hat from them.
Agreed
Now,
with that.
to some extent, these prosecutors that are so new and maybe not necessarily trained don't know how to keep the white hat. But your question to me was, are we neutral going in? No, we're not. But do we have a better chance of taking that white hat? Yes, we do.
Can I reframe my question? Do you, as it comes to the judges, do you feel, because it used to be, one of my favorite stories, legendary story, is like some BS case that came out of Louisiana, where this guy was getting arrested and he said, "I want my lawyer dog." Are you familiar with this story?
No.
And the Louisiana Criminal Court of Appeals, or whatever they call it there, said that that was not a clear invocation of the Fifth Amendment because he might have wanted a lawyer dog.
No, he wanted his lawyer, dog.
But you saw in that instance a Republican, criminal court of appeals bending over backwards to absolutely be intellectually dishonest and be like, nah, I got to call balls and strikes, and that was a strike. Sorry, man. And so I feel
That reminds me of the guy that went to the bathroom in the store and he came out and he was like, "Man, I blew it up," or I bombed it or something like that. He said something to that effect, and then everyone thought that there was a bomb in the bathroom, and in fact, he was just like had a bowel movement.
I had an arson case where a guy who had last left the hotel room told his girlfriend that I left a surprise for them, and then it caught on fire, but it was an accidental fire. But everyone thought he had just confessed. But every dude on the jury was like, "No, we knew what he meant." But I feel that we don't have a crop of judges that bend over backwards to not apply the law fairly to our client.
Okay.
I feel good about who we've had for the most part.
Okay,
honestly.
I'm sorry that I misunderstood.
No. It was a poorly worded question. Juries can't, we can't legislate against juries, but we can elect judges that we think are more open-minded towards interpreting the law to our client's favor.
For the most part, yes. I think we've seen a switch in the judiciary where the judiciary is more likely to listen to the defense, right? And it's not I'm listening to you in order to tell you no, right? And just letting you talk until you're done. But actually, I'm listening to you so that I can make the best decision possible.
Right.
I agree with that. I think they want to make this, having practiced for longer than both of you, I can tell you it's improved. It's improved. We have judges who actually listen and actually apply the law and want to do the right thing. So you are good. You're right.
And we see it with these visiting judges that return, right?
Right.
Some of them that return are trying to redo some of the past associations.
Yeah, and I think that's what scared me is seeing a lot of them that are campaigning, especially on the bond issue, like that guy should have never gotten a bond. It's like, well, kind of a constitutional issue there, and are you literally campaigning on the platform that you shouldn't follow the law? And now when we have people that campaign for courts of appeals, they're like, we're going to be fine with that. That's what frightens me on behalf of my clients through my job.
It's a constitutional issue, but on top of that, if you really look back when we did have Republicans on the bench and bond schedules, those bonds were set at a lower
Oh,
level
yeah,
than what they're
much.
currently set at,
Sure.
with mostly Democrats on the bench.
I left the DA's office.
Oh, and less conditions. Less
Oh,
conditions.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're,
There are way more.
they have way more conditions now.
When I left the DA's office in 2008, the standard murder bond was 50,000. Period. And now you're seeing things into the seven figures. You know, a reasonable bond is one that you get in the low six on a fatality case.
It
now.
ranges between 50 and 150 to be reasonable, and even then, you've got some courts that will look you dead in the eye and say 250 and smile like they've done you a favor.
Yet that message out there that these judges are soft on crime is really not true.
And you know, and to be fair, I don't want to seem like I'm bad mouthing the Republican judges of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, although things were certainly different. But I do think that although they were certainly not there to do the accused any favors, I think that there's this level of aggression that so many of these candidates just campaigned on and embraced. And you got Mattress Mac out there, and they're just like,
It's
you're
fake
not
news.
safe, and we're going to do
They
whatever.
campaigned on fake news.
Yeah, and
it got embraced as the truth, and there was nobody there to set the truth straight.
I guess my worry
Well,
is
this is like the failure of the Democratic Party to like combat some of these messages that are out there.
Well, the
or
Democratic
get their
Party is-
own organization to.
The Democratic Party is busy trying to be, I don't know, saintly, right? Reasonable, right? Like sometimes when I ask for a bond, it's a bond that I know my client can't necessarily afford because it's a murder case, but hey, judge, or it's an aggravated robbery, and I'm like, what he can afford is $2,000. So what I really need to be asking for is a $20,000 bond, and at the same time, I realize that that's just going to be discarded as like
right.
futile.
It's not a real
It's
counter.
It's not. Yeah. You know, and so like on a murder case, when you're like, look, my client will take 2 years on a manslaughter, people laugh at you and go, yeah, that's not a real counter. So that's the way I feel asking for a $20,000 bond on a murder case or an aggravated robbery or some sort of first degree. It's like, I realize that we're not really going to get there. But with some of the judges that we currently have on the bench, if that's what your client can afford and they've been sitting in jail for months, then maybe they do get to 25,000. Maybe they do get to 30,000.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's something that your client can actually afford because they've sat in jail for such a long period of time. So you can readdress it. But I think we're getting to the point to where everybody needs to appear tough on crime. And even with them being tough on crime, because I mean, Ramona Franklin in the 338th was definitely tough on bonds.
Yeah, to the point of being ridiculous.
And at the same time, she still didn't get the nomination.
Right.
So you might as well just do the right thing. And that way, at least your conscience is clear.
Yeah, and you know, and just going back, it's like, it seems like we campaigned, that so many people campaigned on not doing the right thing. You know, it's like, don't break the law unless it's us breaking the law by ignoring constitutional rights. And you know, of course,
Well,
the irony of that's lost.
I think that Murray, what you're saying is you're onto something, and I think, you know, Jackie, what you said about Judge Franklin is true, but the primary and the general are kind of appealing to different audiences.
Sure.
The general definitely is a big swing to safe streets and crime and punishment and things like that. And I do think that what you're saying, Murray, is something that we need to watch out for, because it's not just like Republican judges from those 30 years that you generalized, claiming not to generalize them, but it's also, you know, something that we're seeing in, you know, Court 5, Judge Fleischer. A lot of like what he says from the bench is that he's motivated by protecting his citizens of Harris County. And that's what he says from the bench to defendants when he's imposing bond conditions and telling them that he's doing this to protect his citizens of Harris County on the roads. And, you know, so I think we're seeing this on both sides of the party. Judges from all kinds of different backgrounds taking pretty like strict positions. Even when they'll grant a PR bond, then they're turning around and putting conditions on it that are really, really burdensome. And they're doing it from a position of claiming to be trying to protect communities from people who are supposedly supposed to be appearing in front of them presumptively innocent,
Right.
and the judges are supposed to be objective in those setting of those conditions. But I think that, you know, Judge Fleischer's being honest about his motivation for what he's doing, and he's you know, laying it out there that he's doing this for that reason. But I do think that there's a lot more of that the judges let kind of eke in, and I think that's a fair critique.
No, I do. Oh, I
A
do
lot of the
too.
judges are running on, like, I'm not saying I'm gonna follow the law, like, right? They're judges, and that's what they're swearing to do. They have to swear to follow the law, like it or love it. You have to, or like it or hate it, you have to follow it.
But the
And
law
that's
is
what you're
subject.
swearing to do.
The law is subject to interpretation.
Sure, yeah, judicial discretion, right?
So there's a lot of gray area in that.
I agree. Right. And they can use that to swing whichever way that they want. But that's what I think that I think Murray's got an interesting point, that we're not seeing billboards that up there like, vote for me, I'll follow the law. But that's what they're swearing to do. They're not swearing to, like, keep the citizens on the streets safe, or punish people a certain way, or give people a certain number of PR bonds. Follow the law.
Judges aren't campaigning to be fair; they're campaigning as being tough, and that's you know, that's kind of the crux of it. And you saw it. I mean, I think during the pandemic, when stories started coming out about this guy who got a bond and then committed a murder or a robbery or something, you saw a lot of these judges suddenly get frightened for their jobs, and all of a sudden, you started seeing the judge that gave you a PR bond on a robbery, you know, or an ag assault the week before suddenly wants $50,000 or something like that the next week, and I think that comes from a lot of public pressure, and that's sad, because I think that when you look back at any judge that you would say was an amazing judge, that they were the ones that stood in the face of public pressure and did the right thing and followed the law.
Exactly. And they're not doing that anymore.
It's hard to find, and when
They're harder to find.
Because they just want to be reelected.
And when you've got a wave, a complete political party basically campaigning on the issue of doing the opposite of that, that's concerning for our side of the aisle in a court.
Well, it's such a big problem because our jails are filled overflowing
to the point to where we're
Yes.
shipping people to Mississippi and Louisiana.
And this is big. This is big. We're supposed to have been letting out more people and more people on bond reform, but actually the jails are more crowded than they've ever been.
They sure
Well,
are.
and you know, and to add to it, you know, now we have complete and utter disregard for the truth in what we say. You know, you go and you look at Fox 26, and you know, they're out there saying, well, Judge Danny Lacayo let this aggravated robber out on a PR bond, and ignoring the fact it was because the DA's office let it go past 90 days without an indictment. And we're, you know, living in a post-truth society.
I've had to
make
explain the
says that
Constitution
you're in.
right.
so much.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, the integrity of the courtroom is now compromised by the internet and the you know, the misstatements of law and fact that are just coming. You saw Kim Ogg, who had like a 10-person media team out there spreading and poisoning the well. And it's like, why don't we just say screw it and go back to lynch mobs? It seems a lot less costly at this point.
That's not bait. That's not news bait.
Yeah.
You know, putting
Right.
it out there, you know, and not giving them the whole information.
Who needs a law degree when you have an opinion?
Right.
You know,
State's not ready for trial. They haven't been
That's
ready
not
for trial
salacious.
for a couple of years. You know, you have to give an affordable bond if they continue to not be ready, and people just don't understand that.
Oh no, and you know, Kim Ogg talking about things like, oh, and the defense attorneys just love their resets. Like, yeah, we love them when you haven't complied with discovery or you haven't done your part of it. Yes, we love that we're not forced to trial when that happens. But like,
No,
we
they
get
should
blamed
be
for
thanking
that.
us for the reset.
Yeah,
Like, when they don't have discovery yet, like, I shouldn't have to line up and grovel for a reset. Like, they carry the burden of proof.
yeah.
Every reset is a
Oh,
gift
he
to
froze.
them.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
y'all hear me? No.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
internet?
You froze for a second. We laughed.
Oh.
We
Well, I
laughed.
froze at the best part.
Yeah.
So just
What you said was really smart.
Trust
We
me,
didn't
it
hear
was
any
really-
of it.
Good. It was really, really good.
Okay, so
Yeah.
of all the races, Murray, which one surprises you the most?
So looking at there's a couple of things that I take away from this.
And I mean the local county.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm surprised that out of this Republican sweep that somehow Lori D'Angelo got singled out as the one person that didn't. I just don't understand it.
Well,
Okay, hit me.
she ran against. Okay, so you've got Lori D'Angelo.
Right, she ran against
D'Angelo.
Stacey Allen.
She ran against
Barlow.
Stacey Allen Barrow.
Sorry.
What we have found is when you name somebody in a very non-ethnic way, right?
Yeah.
If you are black
Yeah, I agree with this.
and you have a non-ethnic name,
Yeah,
you get further on paper because people don't realize that your name
right.
is singling you out as black. When you look at Carvana Cloud, for example,
Yeah.
people look at Carvana and they're like, I've never heard that name before. She must be black.
Yeah.
She must be other, right? She must be
Right.
white. She must be something else. I don't trust that. I'm going to go with this other person whose
Right.
name is more recognizable.
Yeah.
So Aaron Burdett sounds nice and safe, right?
Okay.
So when you look at Stacey Allen Barrow,
Yeah.
her name sounds nice and safe versus Lori D'Angelo. Wait. I think they're trying to sneak one in on me. This
There's an
sounds like a
apostrophe
person.
in there.
Yeah, this sounds like a
Well,
person of color.
Well, I mean, it's like.
Yeah.
But Matthew Pinneggy-
Wait, do we have a problem with Italians? To me, it was just strange. It was a strange anomaly.
Do
I
I,
don't
do I
disagree.
have a problem with Italians?
Well,
no,
no,
but
but-
I mean,
but you know- but remember in
I think D'Angelo, people might get confused and think that it's Hispanic
Well,
and not Italian.
And if you remember in 2008, when there was a Democratic sweep, the one Republican who won was Mark Ellis, who beat Makisha Walker. And they actually gave some news coverage to that. Was it her name? And
I think it most definitely was.
yeah,
Jessica Padilla.
yeah. Well, she won.
Yeah, well, her name Hispanic. So
Yeah.
But that was
Yeah,
look, Black
Republican.
Girl Magic and people of color were making a name for themselves back then. And so now people are like, yeah, we're over that. We already did Black Girl Magic. We don't want to hear about that anymore. So now they're moving on. So Lori D'Angelo sounds like an ethnic name, but Stacey Allen Barrow doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's about as best reason as I've heard on that, because I thought it
that
was
sounds like
unusual.
Jackie. You might just be right.
You are right, and that's why we're going to get married
You are.
someday. But here's another thing, and this is kind of taking a little bit of a diversion, is that prior to 2008, running for Republican office was really a big business. You had people like Stephen Hotze, Gary Polland, Terry Lowry, these people that would basically sell their endorsement in their slates, and it was huge business. Candidates, Republicans,
And these are
elbowing.
people you were going up against in your blog.
I'm not a fan of any of those.
But y'all had competing blogs.
No, theirs actually was slates. Theirs was I guess Lowry had a blog, but what they had was their mailouts. And if you were standing in line to work a poll or something like that, stop right
What
now.
is it with
Just
you and
stop
polls
right
today?
now. You're gonna see the pale man blush here.
First you want us to straddle a
That
pole,
was
and
smart.
now you're talking about working a pole.
For the people at home, we were talking about the chairs and the table. No, but this was like I think that people underestimated the big business of that. That when in 2008, suddenly, I mean, Republican primaries used to be where the bench was decided for my first 10 years or 9 years in this county as a lawyer, and they made so much money. Like, well, if you donate $15,000 to my slate, you'll probably get my endorsement. And you would see these folks that never had jury duty or didn't remember it carrying their little piece of paper telling them how to vote, and you had to get at least one or two of them if you wanted to have a chance to win the Republican Party. And in 2008, when there was a Democratic sweep, those guys just kind of went out of business. And they've been fighting to get back in business for so long. I mean, Hotze is literally charged with aggravated assault right now because he hired a dude to try to prove election denying claims. That was it Mark Aguirre, the guy that used to be with HPD? Remember, he stopped a guy that he decided was stealing ballots or something like that. But these guys have been the ones that have been struggling to get back in power, but they couldn't find Republican candidates. So I think what this is definitely going to be a signal to, because I was just looking at how many of these races didn't have a Republican
Unopposed,
candidate.
yep.
Yeah,
That's going to
and
change.
so
Right.
Hazel Jones, Nikita Harmon, Kelly Johnson, Colleen Guido, Judge Cornelio, Tiaiva Bell, they did not have opponents because the Republicans, they weren't planning on this. At the beginning of the year, they did not think that this was going to happen any more than we did. But they didn't know what was going to happen with Biden or with Harris, and so I do think that if nothing else, this signals a return of the hotly contested, Republican things.
They will have a candidate
primary.
on every ballot.
And that's going to be a really interesting phenomenon to see again, because the question I really wanted to get to with all three of you guys is do we think that this repeats itself in 2026? Do we see this happening in 2026? Because I've heard both sides of that. I've heard no, 2026 will be fine. We'll reestablish ourselves as blue. What do y'all think?
I think you have to understand what the people are saying right now.
Okay. How so?
I think this was a mandate to say, we don't really like either one of y'all. We're mad. Nobody is listening to us. And I think it's common Joe. Like, it is the common man who is struggling to be heard. And he doesn't feel heard. And he's just like, I'm trying to figure out how to be heard. Either I can vote against my interest, or I cannot vote. And maybe when all of this falls out, because I think when we look at those 15 million voters that didn't show up to the polls, we're going to be like, wow, and we start breaking that down from a demographic standpoint, we're going to realize that there's a real problem amongst certain minority groups.
Well, but you're talking about national level.
Well, national brings people out.
Sure.
Now you're saying that in the next 2 years, does it matter? Because
In Harris
Well,
County.
it's gonna be
But-
governor's
but
race.
it's still the same thing. Though.
Yes.
So
Correct.
It's still the same thing though. What are we really dealing with? Like, are we still struggling? Do I feel heard? In the next 2 years, if the Democrats haven't proven to Joe Schmo that he has been heard, then yes, it's still going to be red.
I think it has a lot to do with the economy. The
Okay.
economy, I think, brought a lot of the voters out. I think that's why a lot of people went Republican. I think they want to change. They don't understand, I guess, the dynamics that go into the economy. It might already be on an uptick anyway.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a strong argument for that.
yes, but I think it depends on how the Republicans perform.
Yeah. What do you think, Justin?
Well, I think Trump, he's going to be around for 4 more years, as long as he's still alive. And I think he makes this all a wild card. I think the midterms become a total wild card, and I think that affects the local races in 2026. I think the biggest surprise to me on the ballot was Sean Tier, to be honest. And it's also kind of like the most ironic victory, because that means people went into the booth and were like thinking about those billboards about vote for Republican judges. And they were like, okay, keep the streets safe. Don't vote for the Democrat for this court. But when they got down to the district attorney and also the sheriff, the two most powerful law enforcement agents in the county, they voted for the Democrat, right?
Yeah.
Am I coming
Just-
through?
Yeah.
Just
No.
barely.
Yeah.
Just barely.
So-
I mean,
I think that what you had is a lot of people who came out to vote for the top of the ballot. They were motivated by that, and they didn't understand what was really at play, other than the billboards that they keep seeing on the drives home. So I think in 2026, if Trump has done what a lot of people who voted against him fear he's going to do, there's going to be a whole lot of people coming out to push for congressional oversight, and there may be some things there. I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. I think that they're also going to see how Allred underperformed so unexpectedly dramatically against Cruz, and I don't know who's going to want to take on Abbott. I don't know who's got the money.
That's
and
no
name.
one can take
Unless
him.
Matthew McConaughey decides to actually get serious, it's going to take somebody like Matthew McConaughey, and I don't know if he's going to get the Democratic nomination. So 2026, I don't know yet. We're going to see what Trump does, if it motivates people to come out, because that's what I think. That's the interesting thing to me, is how the judges took a beating on a political thing when the two political people who are running for law enforcement, the sheriff and the DA, and they went Democrat.
Well, and I think an interesting factor to me is that, in 2022, we were right on the heels of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And so I think there was a lot of fresh anger then that brought a lot of people to the polls, because, nationwide, they had initially been expecting there to be a lot of turnover in the House and in the Senate, and there did not end up being, which I think you can attribute to abortion rights. But now, I mean, as sad as it is to say, did that issue become stale to some voters? And, what else could he possibly take away from us that would motivate voters in the midterms like it did in 2022? And that's what is interesting to me. That's what scares me, for the future of in Harris County, to a large degree.
I do think that the failure here is that a lot of Democratic minded people just chose not to vote, right? So I don't think it's that it was this influx of Republican votes. I think it was a failure of a grassroots campaign to actually get voters to the polls.
Yeah.
So when you look at Barack Obama, when you look at, things that Joe Biden, there was a big push. Like even going to a black church, one of the things that you saw were black churches were busing people to the polls. And people were also working together to make sure that their elderly neighbors had rides to the polls. Have you voted yet? Have you gotten there yet? And I don't think that happened under Kamala. And I'm not blaming Kamala. She had 107 days, right? So I'm not blaming her, but I think that got overlooked. You can have people that are with you. You can have people that wear your buttons. You can have people that post on Facebook, but can you get those people to the polls? Yeah. And if you can't get them to the polls, even though they're with you, it doesn't matter if they don't vote. Exactly. And then we get trounced. Then we get trampled. Then we get slaughtered. And we're over there going, well, what happened? So, I think that there was a failure to actually come on board and say, let's make sure, because we did see that in past elections where there was some acknowledgement that people weren't making it to the polls. And there was a push to actually get rides. There was a push to make sure that Uber was paid or Lyfts were paid. There was notifications that went out that said if you need a ride to the polls, here's where you can go or how you can make sure that you're there.
I saw those on election day. I didn't see them at all during early voting.
I still haven't seen them.
I got one or two on election day. But yeah.
Had you voted early or did you vote on election day?
I voted early.
Early.
Yeah.
Because I voted later than my partner. We both voted early, but I voted like a week after the second week. And she was getting text messages saying, somebody in your address hasn't voted, get them to the polls. I never got anything like that. I got every other text message, but I didn't get any. I think that you're right, Jackie. I think that the Democratic Party failed nationwide and in Harris County to get people's butts from their sofas to the polls. And I think the only thing that makes sense for that 2 or 3% shift to, that swept in Republican judges and kept out Republicans in law enforcement is that moderates showed up and they sat there and were like, okay, I don't care about party other than in the judges. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm not a political scientist anymore. But I'd like to see somebody do some of the data on who actually showed up and how many of them were moderates. I think that the moderate vote didn't get appealed to very well. They went in there and they were moderates, and they picked different people from different parties. And yeah, but I think that overall, if the Democrats had pushed more voter effort, grassroots level, it would have affected all across the whole
I mean, I
ballot.
really do wish we would get rid of Democrat and Republican judges.
In the criminal world,
God,
yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Why does
It has nothing to do
the
with
mayor
whether
have
they're
to
a
be
good
nonpartisan,
judge
but
or
the
not.
judges have to be partisan? I agree. I'm
have
sorry.
you run for office before? Did
Never.
you? Never. Yeah, but one of the things, and I never have either. But there again, it's a big business because the parties, they get kickbacks. They expect kickbacks from the judicial candidates, and so
Yeah.
they'll never let them go. Neither side will do it. They rely on too many individual candidates running across there to contribute part of what they bring in on their campaign donations to the big party. So neither side is motivated at all to ever change that, and it's a crying shame.
Right.
I mean, I mean, I've seen an odd legislator here or there that's like, we need to make them nonpartisan, and they're like, fun idea, Bob.
But if we took
And-
away
Yeah.
that, people would actually
It'd be
have
better.
to
Sure.
do something and do research on whether these people are going to be good candidates.
So you researched the Railroad Commissioner?
No.
So you,
Admittedly not.
So do you really think that?
And when it came to
And that's my
civil,
point.
I was researching through Murray.
Well, and I appreciate that as well as everybody should, but the thing is that when you do,
Please don't stroke his
when
ego.
when you do have partisan judges, and you're like, man, I don't know who that judge is, but I know what my feelings are on criminal law, and I would imagine that this candidate would most accurately reflect my views. I mean, but then you might as well just have gone back to straight ticket voting. And somebody brought up an interesting point of saying that in some of these judicial races, the races were so close that actually us getting our word out and talking to our friends and saying, hey, and putting that yard
Yeah.
sign of the good judge in your front yard and talking to your people and making that effort to go out and knock on doors and talk about them actually mattered. And I know there's a lot of us that are feeling kind of down in the aftermath of Tuesday, but that to me is a positive.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
had
that
family
we
members
should get out there and do that.
ask me,
Yeah.
who are the good judges?
Yeah.
Who are the good judges? And I happily said, love this one. And both parties,
Yeah.
both parties. Because there are really good people that are really good judges, and it doesn't matter what party they are.
Yeah.
That's true.
And and I mean, I don't really write on my blog much it's bad. Like I'm busy, and I don't.
Yeah. At
But
this
but
point,
if
somebody has to die for you to write.
I've been missing some obituaries too. I feel terrible about it. But but around election time, I will get maybe one or two texts or emails like that says, "Hey, are you going to do this?" Because I actually use it, and of course my ego goes through the roof. But I'm glad to know, like, and a lot of times it's somebody I don't even know who they are. Or I may have just met them in passing, and it does my heart so good to know that there are people out there that do the research that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go sit down and write this, and I'm glad that they're out there, and those are the reasons that I'm not just crushed on this. So, and I mean, to be fair, there are plenty of the Republicans that I think are going to that did win benches. I think are going to do a great job. They're people that I've known.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. I don't.
There's
But
nobody
I
there
think
that
the
I'm like,
surprise here is just I think between this whole entire year I've just felt like this is going to end up going blue, right?
Yeah.
It's Harris County.
I think it's
gonna
just
be
shocking.
blue.
I think we're stunned.
And it's that shock that just goes, whoa, wait. And, at this point, you can't do anything but look at Harris County and say it's wide open.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the 177th, not sad about that, to see Robert Johnson go. I mean, I'm just not. I love Allison Mathis, but Michelle Onken is a great person too. I don't think that that's going to be a disaster. Wish she had a little defense experience. But
I don't know. I think you're going to cry tears that you don't expect to cry.
what do you mean?
I don't know.
I-
Aren't you gonna miss Robert Johnson's jokes?
I avoided his court like the plague, in all honesty, and and I think that a lot of other defense attorneys did too, and I think that affected the quality of representation in his court, and so no, I mean, even though I don't have a personal beef with him, I saw too many good lawyers that are like, I'm not going to sign up to be attorney of the day or take indigent cases in his court, so I think that will change. There's no judge that won that I am. There's plenty of judges that lost that I'm sorry to see that they lost,
Right.
but there's no judge
Like
that I
Ashley
am
Geis.
mortified that they're coming on. I mean, right, exactly. Like
Ashley Geis was a tough
Ashley's a great example. Ashley would have made a fantastic judge, but Linda is absolutely a lovely human being. She's been a judge before. I think she's very fair. There's nobody that I'm like, well, we're screwed. That now that we have that person, but that doesn't mean that won't happen next time. That doesn't mean that won't happen in 2026. I mean, this was a shock, but I don't think we got any judges that we're going to hate.
Oh, there's people right now who are like, I wasn't gonna run, but now,
Right.
you know what?
Yeah.
Court 10, court 12, those look good. Like, let
Yeah.
me go after. There's some people who are
Yeah.
who were not ever thinking about. So yeah, I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
I-
Harris County is wide open at this point, and I think a
it
lot of
is,
people are
and
gonna.
I didn't think it was.
I think in that 2-year mark, I think that's what we're going to see, where people are like, let me throw my name in the hat, because what can it possibly hurt? I don't even think you have to
We've got 1 minute. Just
campaign at this point.
Well, I think the overarching message of this whole show is that you're all telling me I should blog more, right? I mean, that's what. Okay.
I
Sure.
do miss your blog. I do
Yes.
miss it.
Big truth to power, Murray. Come
Yeah.
on.
But I do think we need to do what we can to get we need our YouTube channels. We need to start being more vocal because it matters. And,
I'll say Sean Tier came on our show twice.
Yeah.
Dan Simons, 0.
0. All right. We're down to
maybe-
1
maybe-
minute,
maybe
Justin.
local-
Just FYI.
It's all you. It's all you, Murray.
No. What you got? Closing thoughts.
Nothing. No, I didn't mean to just. Reasonable doubt brings it to people.
That's right. We need to get the word out. We need to share these videos and get the word out. And we need to start getting ready for 2026 because I was wrong. I was wrong as hell about what I thought was going to
There were
happen
some
on
judges
Tuesday.
that were wrong.
Yeah.
There were some judges that didn't think they were gonna win, and they won.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be a fight. All right. Well, thank you, Monica Gonzalez. Thank you, Jackie Carpenter.
Thank you, Murray.
Still waiting to lock down
for
the
coming on, and thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you in 2 weeks. I think that's our schedule. So anyway, thank you.
I think we're on next week.
Oh, are we on next week? Okay, we'll see you next week. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see you
yeah.
next time.
How do you not?